Good to see you again. This is ARIRANG News, live from Seoul. I'm Na Hyun-kyung. We start with America's benchmark West Texas crude dipping below the $50 per barrel mark during Monday's trading. This has sent shockwaves to markets around the world. For our top story, here's Kim Min-ji.
New year, same situation. Global crude prices plummeted to their lowest level since the spring of 2009 on Monday as concerns of oversupplies deepen. U.S. benchmark West Texas Intermediate oil fell 5% to finish at just over $50 per barrel on the New York Mercantile Exchange. It even dipped below the symbolic threshold of $50 at one point, a level unseen since April 2009. Benchmark Brent crude also shed about 6% to around $53 a barrel. The latest dip in oil prices also sent shockwaves to global stock markets. The Dow Jones Industrial Average fell more than 330 points, or 1.9%, as investors broadly sold off energy stocks. The S&P 500 shed 1.8%. Crude prices have been on a downward spiral since June, losing more than half of their value. Investors fear that the global supply glut, coupled with weak demand, could push prices down further. OPEC countries have only shown a stronger resolve to raise production in a fight to protect their global market share against shale production in the United States. Recent data also shows that Russian oil outputs have hit post-Soviet records, while Iraqi exports are at their highest since the 1980s. Kim Min-ji, ARIRANG News.
5 nations have raised objections at the World Trade Organization about Korea's increased tariffs on imported rice. The U.S., China, Australia, Thailand, and Vietnam have taken issue with the steps taken by Korea to open up its rice market in recent months. After a 20-year grace period, Korea made the shift starting this year, setting a tariff of 513% on rice imports that exceed the annual quota, which currently stands at just over 400,000 tons. Responding to the criticism, Korea's ambassador to the WTO, Choi Seok-young, said the Korean government would negotiate with each of the 5 countries to keep the tariff rate where it is now, since it's designed to protect the domestic rice industry. Samsung Electronics has ranked second in the world in terms of R&D spending for 2 consecutive years. The Korea Institute of Science and Technology Evaluation and Planning, citing figures filed by the European Commission, says Samsung poured $12 billion into research and development in 2013. German automaker Volkswagen topped the list at $14 billion. Microsoft and Intel came in at 3rd and 4th, respectively. 3 Korean firms ranked in the top 100. LG Electronics was 49th on that list, while Hyundai Motor scraped in at 99th. And speaking of Hyundai Motor, the company says it will invest $73 billion in facilities and R&D by 2018 in a bid to enhance the performance of its automobiles and raise its brand value. That's equivalent to $18 billion a year. Now, to give you some context, that's $1 billion more than the government's annual budget for national R&D investment. 85% of Hyundai's investments will be devoted to improving performance standards and developing hybrids and smart cars. Another $10 billion will be set aside to build the Auto Group's new business complex on recently acquired land in the Seoul district of Gangnam. Now, more than 750,000 cars, both from home and abroad, were recalled last year in Korea. Now, although that figure might seem large, it's actually well below the number of vehicles recalled in 2013. That's when the total was at more than 1 million. Data from the Korea Transportation Safety Authority also shows that the number of recalled imported cars jumped from 55,000 in 2013 to more than 120,000 in 2014. Officials attribute that to the rising number of imported cars in Korea and tougher recall measures in the U.S. and Europe. With the recent hike in cigarette prices, some say the most affected are men serving their compulsory military duties here in Korea. Their monthly paychecks hover around $100, which means if a private wants to smoke a pack a day, he wouldn't have any money left by the end of the month. Kim Hyun-bin has more.
Many Korean men start smoking or increase their tobacco consumption during their 2-year mandatory military service. But the recent cigarette price hike is likely to give them pause. With the average price of a pack up roughly $2 to about $4 now, it's become a much pricier habit, especially when you consider that a private's monthly paycheck comes to less than $110. That means, if a private were to smoke a pack a day, he would use up all of his paycheck before the month ends. Up until 2005, the Korean military provided each serviceman with 15 packs a month free of charge. That total gradually decreased over the next 4 years until 2009, when the free pack policy was phased out completely. The smoking rate in the military has slowly declined over that time as well, from roughly 60% in 2005 to about 50% in 2009, and it's been edging down ever since. The military hopes to see the smoking rate dip below 30% as a result of this month's nationwide cigarette price hike. To nudge the cadets in the right direction, the Korean military set up clinics that encourage cadets to quit smoking.
After the price hike, several units requested that we open smoking clinics. The cadets have been very eager to take part.
That eagerness has taken the form of cadets enrolling in educational classes and using nicotine patches, with the pledge to quit smoking once and for all. Kim Hyun-bin, ARIRANG News.
The annual Consumer Electronics Show will soon open under the bright lights of Las Vegas. From autonomous cars to high-tech TVs, our Connie Lee gives us a preview of the hot trends at this year's event.
It's one of the world's biggest tech gadget fairs, involving about 3,600 companies. The Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas kicks off on Tuesday. More than 150,000 tech heads are set to visit for a first look at the next big thing. So what are some of the trends this year? Judging from the products already announced, it looks like some high-tech TVs will play a big role. 4K TVs, otherwise known as Ultra HD televisions, may go mainstream this year. They're defined by their displays, which have 4 times the resolution as their HD counterparts. Both LG and Samsung will be presenting a number of these models at the show, including Samsung's new Tizen-powered curved 4K TV. And how about some autonomous connected cars?
The autonomous car will be a big topic at CES. All the major auto manufacturers come to this show. They come here to show off the ways in which their cars are working with your smartwatch, with your phone.
Major automakers like Mercedes-Benz and BMW are set to display their latest intelligent cars. Wearable smart devices will also take center stage. Hundreds of companies will show off their latest wearable products, including different accessories designed to work with these devices. The growth of 3D printers, robotics, and drones will also be a hot trend this year, with the buzz phrase, the Internet of Things, being one of the major themes.
The Internet of Things is a really general term that stands in for devices talking to each other without you across the Internet.
The international CES is set to run through Friday. Connie Lee, ARIRANG News.
In time for the 70th anniversary of the end of World War II, Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe says his government will show remorse for Japan's behavior during the war. Analysts say this could help Tokyo improve ties with China and South Korea, but they will have to wait and see just how much responsibility his cabinet is willing to take for Japan's past wrongdoings. Here's ARIRANG News' Kim Young-gil for this report.
Giving his first news conference of the year on Monday, Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe said he plans to express remorse in a fresh statement this year over Japan's actions during the war and its post-war history as a pacifist nation.
Our cabinet will reflect on what we did wrong during the Second World War and on our progress as a peace-loving nation. We will gather our knowledge to bring about a new statement on how to contribute further to the Asia-Pacific region and the world.
As Japan gears up to mark the 70th anniversary of the end of the war on August 15th, Prime Minister Abe said he had no intention of trying to reinterpret Japan's historical wrongdoings.
We will continue to adopt the stance of previous cabinets with regards to the interpretation of history, including the Murayama Statement.
On the 50th anniversary of the war's end in August 1995, then Prime Minister Tomiichi Murayama said Japan caused tremendous damage and suffering to Asia through its colonial rule and aggression and expressed a heartfelt apology. There have been fears that Abe will come under pressure from right-wingers in Japan who would like the apology to be repealed. Korea and China will be paying close attention to whether Abe will uphold the Murayama Statement. This year has been identified as a chance for Tokyo to rebuild its strained ties with Seoul and Beijing. Relations have been chilled by territorial disputes and Abe's distorted views of wartime history. Watchers say that if Abe sticks to his word and offers a sincere apology, it could present an opportunity for Korea, China, and Japan to build stronger ties this year and create a more peaceful and forward-looking atmosphere in Northeast Asia. Kim Young-gil, ARIRANG News.
Following Washington's newest sanctions on North Korea, some legislators in the U.S. are urging the government to look into relisting Pyongyang as a state sponsor of terrorism. So what effect will this have on the newly found momentum on the Korean peninsula? Our Unification Ministry correspondent Hwang Sung-hee talked to some experts for answers. Take a look.
The latest U.S. sanctions on North Korea following its cyber attack on Sony Pictures have sparked fresh discussions among lawmakers in Washington.
What happened here is that North Korea landed a virtual bomb on Sony's parking lot and ultimately had real consequences to it as a company and to many individuals who work there.
Some are even calling on President Barack Obama to follow through on his pledge to review relisting North Korea as a state sponsor of terrorism. Representative Ileana Ros-Lehtinen said in a statement that North Korea should have never been taken off the list and added she will reintroduce legislation to redesignate the regime as a state sponsor of terrorism as a means of putting more pressure on Pyongyang. The White House is taking a cautious stance, saying such a move requires a very specific technical justification. However, the U.S. State Department said the new executive order is the first aspect of Washington's response, noting there are ongoing discussions about other options. Analysts say the heightened tensions between the U.S. and North Korea will not affect the new momentum between the two Koreas for now.
Relations between North Korea and the United States were bad before South Korea proposed inter-Korean talks. Since both Koreas agree on the need for dialogue and the leaders have shown a willingness, I expect North Korea to make a counter-proposal for talks in the near future.
But should Pyongyang launch a violent protest, analysts expect discussions on additional U.S. sanctions to expand and warn those tensions could quickly trickle through to the Korean peninsula. Hwang Sung-hee, ARIRANG News.
And there's another expert who agrees with an idea mentioned in this last report. Victor Cha, the chief Korea analyst at the Center for Strategic and International Studies, also says Washington's new sanctions will not have much of an impact on the prospects for inter-Korean ties. Speaking to reporters in Washington, he said the U.S. supports inter-Korean dialogue in the sense that Pyongyang gets the chance to deliver its message to the South directly. He also warned Seoul and Washington to brace themselves for nuclear and ballistic missile tests by North Korea this year, as they could demonstrate Pyongyang's crossing of a new technology threshold, such as warhead miniaturization.
Bringing you the fresh updates from stories breaking in Korea and abroad. We give you a bigger and better picture of the world. Join Na Hyung-kyung live from Seoul. Every weekday, only on ARIRANG.
Could Korea be facing another massive foot and mouth disease outbreak? Dozens of cases have been confirmed in pigs since last month, and now a cow at a farm on the outskirts of Seoul has tested positive. Park Ji-won tells us more.
It was a nightmare for livestock farmers. More than 3 million animals, mostly pigs, were culled nationwide when the worst foot and mouth disease epidemic in Korea's history broke out in late 2010. Fast forward more than 4 years, and fears are rising again, with more than 30 confirmed cases of the disease in the space of a few weeks, since the first case was confirmed in Chungcheongbuk-do province earlier last month. And in a worrying new turn, one cow at a small cattle farm in Anseong, some 80 kilometers south of Seoul, has been confirmed to be infected with FMD. It's the first confirmed case of the disease in a cow since this outbreak began. Anseong is famous for its livestock industry, with some 400,000 cattle and pigs at more than 1,000 farms. So far, 33 cases of foot and mouth disease in pigs have been confirmed, and more than 26,000 have been culled. Quarantine authorities say the spread of the disease will not be as severe as the previous outbreak due to an improved vaccination program. That said, there are fears FMD could spread to some farms that haven't been visited yet. Critics have accused the government of reacting slowly to the first case. While the Agriculture Ministry is expanding vaccinations to more livestock, it also plans to sterilize every slaughterhouse and all livestock-related vehicles from Wednesday. Park Ji-won, ARIRANG News.
A Korean national was recently executed in China for drug-related offenses, but the controversy surrounding the case is not just that he was executed, but that Korea was notified more than 5 days after his death sentence was carried out. Son Jung-in has the story.
Korea's foreign ministry said Beijing notified it on Monday that a Korean man with a family name Kim was executed for drug-related offenses. Word came 6 days after the death sentence was administered. Beijing said the late notice was due to year-end administrative delays. Ministry officials called the execution incomprehensible, given that they had repeatedly asked China for clemency on Kim's behalf. The ministry said it regrets the execution took place despite numerous requests to Beijing to refrain from going through with the execution. It added that it plans to boost cooperation with related countries to further prevent Korean citizens from being involved in drug-related crimes. Kim's execution has called into question the effectiveness of a Council pact between Korea and China that was signed in July and awaits ratification in Korea. Under the pact, the two sides agreed to notify the other within 4 days when a national of that country is held into custody, and immediately if it involves a death sentence. This is not the first time a Korean national has been executed for drug-related offenses in China. In August last year, 2 Koreans were executed for smuggling and trading drugs. Son Jung-in, ARIRANG News.
Reports are coming in that officials in Indonesia may have found the tail of the missing AirAsia flight that disappeared over the Java Sea last week. Officials are not confirming anything yet, but if it's true, they would be closer to finding out the cause of the crash. Shin Se-min reports.
After days of search operations, an Indonesian vessel has found what could hold the key to discovering what caused AirAsia Flight 8501 to crash into the Java Sea. At a news conference Monday, the captain of a patrol vessel said they had found what is most likely the tail of the jetliner. The find could be crucial as the tail of the aircraft contained the black box voice and data recorders. However, Indonesia's chief of search and rescue, Bambang Sulistyo, did not confirm the discovery. As for the probe on land, Indonesia has slapped sanctions on officials that allowed Flight 8501 to depart from Surabaya Airport in Indonesia on that fateful Sunday. The airliner was not permitted to fly on Sundays, but investigators say aviation officials allowed the flight to take off anyway. AirAsia had been banned from flying between Surabaya to Singapore while the investigation is underway. Search operations resumed Tuesday. Sonar equipment has been deployed underwater and authorities have widened their search area off of Borneo Island with a multinational team of more than 40 vessels in the skies and in the seas. 37 bodies have been recovered from Java Sea so far, and only about half of those have been identified. Shin Se-min, ARIRANG News.
Jury selection has begun in Boston in the trial of the 21-year-old suspect accused of detonating a pair of bombs at the Boston Marathon in the spring of 2013. Johar Tsarnaev faces the death penalty for killing 3 people and injuring more than 260 others in that attack near the finish line. He has pleaded not guilty to all 30 charges against him. His brother Tamerlan Tsarnaev was killed days after the bombing in a police shootout. The jury selection phase is expected to take weeks. A judge will select 12 jurors and 6 alternates from a pool of 1,200 people. And on to some cultural news now. In a crowded urban setting, it can be hard at times to appreciate art, but some artists believe that sometimes art can be found in our everyday lives, even in the hustle and bustle of a metropolis. Im Yoon-hee has more.
An urban city of the 21st century, intensely overpopulated, full of contrasting space. Architect Cho Min-seok founded the Mass Studies Project in 2003, a project that examines the relationship between architecture and art, a place where the past and future meet, a utopia versus reality. The exhibition takes a look at the past 12 years of Cho's works, in particular architecture, an aspect of the everyday Cho believes is closely tied with art. While most focus on the before and after of construction of a building, here, it's the process that shapes the building and the culture around it.
There are scores of people from different backgrounds collaborating here as well. This is an exhibition that has brought together many people I respect, including photographers.
The art and design school Bauhaus, originally located in Germany, was open for just 14 years. But it had tremendous influence over 20th century art, architecture, textile, design, and everything in between. Korea's leading modern and contemporary art powerhouse, the National Museum of Modern and Contemporary Art, has collaborated with the Bauhaus Dessau Foundation to put together an exhibition that examines humanity's response to the changes of a new era.
Kandinsky, Oskar Schlemmer, Laszlo Moholy-Nagy. These are some of the lesser-known masters in art history you can see here.
This is the first full-scale Bauhaus exhibition in Asia and includes the work of 6 Korean artists who reflect Bauhaus in the 21st century. Im Yoon-hee, ARIRANG News.
Good afternoon, I'm Michelle Park here with the latest weather forecast. After yesterday's nationwide rain, the weather has gotten colder again with temperatures hovering around the freezing point, which, by the way, fits perfectly because today is Sohan in Korea, which is supposed to be one of the coldest days of the year according to the lunar calendar. Although the skies are looking clear and sunny, we are also expecting some strong winds coming from the west side of the peninsula. And due to that, the mercury is expected to inch down throughout the day, and by the time when you're heading back home from work, It'll be down to -4 degrees and feeling more like -10 due to the wind chills. Tomorrow morning will be twice as cold, so make sure to layer up when commuting to work. And now to our readings for today. Seoul will peak to -1 this afternoon, while the Gwangju and Busan will reach up to 5 and 10 degrees. And to other regions, Jeju Island gets up to 9, Dokdo hits lower at 7, while Malkunggang reaches way down to -5 degrees. Well, that's all for now, Michelle Park, and here's a look at the weather conditions around the world.
And that's a wrap for now. I'm Na Hyun-kyung. Our next newscast is at 6 p.m. Korea time. I'll see you then.